Okay, so welcome back to another draft of my Goldless Cube. We are in our first week of the Cube League, and I RNG lucked into drafting my cube. Our options, we've got elves, which is really powerful, but there's nothing really that we can wheel in green, so that makes it a little bit weaker, except that we could cut green from the pack, which is like relevant. But I think the pick is just Vendilion Click. We have 3 lands also notably that are quite good, but I think Vendilion Click is the correct pick. We're probably not wheeling this Movie Endling, which is kind of sad, but we can probably get Nagging Thoughts or one of the other duels, so I'm okay with that. Alright, so here we have Krenko, we've got Clash of Wills, and we've got Watery Grave. I don't really want to commit too hard into tempo, which is kind of where my brain goes when I see like a Krenko or something like that. And I think Watery Grave leaves us Watery Grave leaves us more open to other archetypes, which I think is a strict benefit here. And of course, you know, it's just fixing and fixing. It's just great. Curator of Mysteries and Murder Strider. Now, this is actually a really interesting pick. I think Murder Strider is a very strong card. If we do end up in some form of control deck, we're going to want removal for Planeswalkers. If not, Curator of Mysteries is great in the tempo lists. So I'm kind of leaning toward Curator. Okay, so here we have a Gadwick, which allows us to probably move into some form of tempo, which is nice. I think that that's like yeah. So also notably, this draft is going to be a 5-man draft, so we're doing 5 packs of 12. Which allows us to see 300 cards in the cube. My cube, now that it's down to 360, isn't designed with hybrid geometrics in mind for drafting less than 8. And because of that, it's better to draft closer to the ideal size, which would be 360. So drafting closer to 300, which is what we'd be drafting total in amount of cards seen, it's much better than drafting less than that. So anyway, just a little bit of insight into the pod composition. Alright, Fatal Push versus Cast Down. I feel like we can probably reliably cast Fatal Push in this deck. I mean, we don't know yet, but we'll see. Alright, so Shivan Reef came back. That's pretty nice. Notably, Elves came back too, so maybe no one's in green. We could take the elves if we felt that that was going to lead us to a more cohesive deck. Like we thought that green was super open, which it probably is if that's there. But I do think that Shivan Reef is just a really strong pick too if we're going to end up in like some sort of 3-color tempo deck. And so I'm just going to go with a land here. I think that that's like maybe a questionable pick, and like, yeah, I mean, I'm looking at that pretty closely. That one is just a clear Clash of Wills, and this one's just going to be a clear Last Gasp. I'll take the Avacyn's Judgment here. I think it's very possible that we end up in... I'm just going to let them finish their thing. I think it's very possible that we end up in Grixis, so I'll go with Avacyn's Judgment, just a pretty solid card. Alright, so green is really open. I'll take Incubation Druid. Karizev came back. Okay, Sunlights. Okay, so that's it's a pretty reasonable conglomeration of cards that came around. Right now, Marsh Flats does get our fixing source. Nadir Kraken is really good in this kind of deck, so that's something to look out for. But I don't know that I can really afford to pass a land this early, especially if we end up in 3 colors. We're going to want fixing to be really good. So I'm going to go with this, and then if Nadir Kraken doesn't wheel and we have to settle for Truth Patel, that's fine. a little bit slow to load here. Alright, so there's a Jace, there's a Scrappy Scrounger, both of which are fairly good. There's a Primordial Mist, which is also fine, and there's a Portent. Scrappy Scrounger is really good against control, for what's worth, but I think that Jace is the correct pick here. We've got like a very proactive looking list here. We're not getting a lot of cantrips yet, so we need to be on the lookout for those kinds of spells. There's a Black Leaf Cliffs, but I'm going to go with Liliana. I think she's just strong enough to skew my draft toward that kind of spell. Piper the Swarm is a reasonable tempo card. I don't think we're going to curve up to 6. Yeah, I can go with this. This seems like pretty okay. Alright, a Jace, a Retrofitter Foundry is really quite good. I actually kind of like the Retrofitter Foundry just because it's so cheap. So I think I'm going to lean toward that, although Jace is like also really reasonable. Alright, so the Deer Kraken did not come back. I'm going to take this Truth or Tale. We are light on cantrips in terms of what I usually want out of a tempo list. We can take the Colonnade, really. There's nothing's really telling me that we won't be in white yet. And, you know, not having Fixing is keeping me from doing that. But I also like Primordial Mist. It's kind of slow, but it's fine. I also take Gouth Blast and, you know, lean heavily into our Red Splash, which right now we've got 1 land to fix for, but yeah, we could potentially see that Black Bay Cliffs, and we did. There's also Ruinous Path, but for now I'll just take the Cliffs. Alright, I don't think we're going to want Liliana even in control matchups. I think that Vault Scourge is probably going to be more useful against aggro than Liliana would be against like control or slower decks. I think twice, alright. Third Inspector is fine. Gauntlet's Body, that's fine. Alright, it looks like maybe white aggro is also open, so that's good to know. And at this point, yeah, I wanted to think twice. At this point, it seems like yeah, so, I don't know what to say. At this point, it seems like green is probably off the table. That's what I was trying to say. Oh, Volcanic Island. That's pretty good. Sarkhan is also really strong. But I feel like wheeling the Sarkhan is probably much more likely than wheeling the Volcanic Island. So I'm going to go with Volcanic Island here. I want to ensure that I have the best fixing I can. And then we can go from there. So right now we're a little bit threat dense for my taste. So type 5 creatures, 6, 7, 8. So we've got like 8 threats. We've got a reasonable amount of interaction. This is like going to play closer like Grixis mid-range than like tempo, and like however you define those differences is kind of like, you know, I think that's kind of loose. All right, Bone Crusher Giants are really good pickup since we got Grixis. Creepy Tarboy is a really good Grixis card. Yeah, it's going to play well in our deck, I think. Okay. Young Pyromancer is good. Condescend is good. Serum Visions is good. We don't have a ton of counter magic yet. Most of our interaction is board interaction. We could take Serum Visions. I think we'll wheel one of these, so I'll just take the Serum Visions, and I'm okay with getting an evasive action, even though it's worse than Condescend. Although I guess we'll also wheel one of these. Condescend is significantly better, whereas these are pretty close to one another, I think, in terms of actual strength. So yeah, I'll go with Condescend, that seems fine. Disfigure Ultimate Price. Ultimate Price kills almost anything in the cube, so I think that's a pretty good pickup. Sarkhan Wheel, alright. I'm in for that. Conceive Siphoner's fine. I think we're a little bit slower than the kind of mid-range deck that's going to one-run him. Also notably, I was counting Courier Mysteries as a threat, and it can very well be a cantrip. It's like more often than not a cantrip, I think. We can take Fanatical Firebrand for the aggro matchup. Probably not running that main board, but might end up. coming in. Alright, so far we're at 25 playables, so we've got 19 real playables. Yeah, 19 non-land playables is kind of what we're looking at, so we've really got 6 slots left, and I think we're in pack 3, right? Yeah. Yeah, we got 4 more packs, or 4 more picks in pack 3. We've got 2 more packs after that, so our deck should be really well refined. Cutting down is going to be very challenging. Alright, so we were correct. C Beyond Wield. We'll take the C Beyond. It's a really late Gideon. That's a sign that white is really open. I don't think we're in a place to just move into white. I think that we're very much committed to our colors at this point in terms of what we have going on. I think this is probably the most annoying thing for me here. Seems fine. Yeah. There was definitely a white aggro deck that was available. Sulfur Falls. Sulfur Falls and Pyrrha and Karan are basically the picks here, and I think Sulfur Falls. We're going to have a lot of playables, so I think it's really safe to just draft lands here. We can take the Delta or the Scalding Tarn. I really like taking Delta here. I think. Maybe not. I mean, I guess black is more important to us than red for the most part, so I'll go with Delta. At least in our current configuration, that might change, but as of now, Worldly Council I think is better than just like shocks. Not that shocks are bad, but I think on average it does a little bit more. Alright, so Badlands. We can take Incinerate, we can take Inquisition, but I think one of those is probably going to wheel. Yeah, so that's also, it makes our Marsh Flats a lot better. I'm at 30 playables with 9 of them being lands. Alright, yeah, so I think this is a pretty clear Searing Spear. 3 damage is kind of nice. I mean, Glyphkeeper is also up there. Alright, P and Kron. I mean, Flames and Firebrand is also really good for what it's worth. I think that Flames is like certainly very strong, and we are already very like we've got a pretty threat dense list. But what I liked about P and Kron is it's good in the same places where Flames is good, but it's proactive. Whereas Flames can only be used practically once. So I kind of just want the P and Kron here. Terror is fine. Cav is good. I kind of want to take the Cavalier of Gales here. It's just like a big honkin' body. And that's pretty reasonable. I don't think the Terror is really going to make this list at this point. I think it kills less things than any of our removal, pretty much, overall in my cube. So I'm just going to take the Cavalier of Gales. Just a big, beefy body. And here we'll take Seal of Fire. Incinerate Wield, alright. It's really good. So let's start putting these things in. We can see how many cards we've got. So right now we're at 34, 23, and we are going to probably... we're going to probably end up... oh, sorry. We put the Cav in. Okay, so we're at 24. I think we can run 15 lands in this deck, probably, if we pick cantrips in the last pack, which I think we should be able to do. Right now we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cantrips already, so really if we're at 6, we can go to 15. So yeah, I'm pretty okay with that. And honestly, with 6, we can maybe be at 14 if we really squeeze for it. But alright, Terror came back. If we really if we're up against like a mid-range deck, we could bring in potentially more removal. Fastest Intervention is good. Censor is also good. I'm not sure which of those is better. So it's 3 mana Quench or 3 mana 3 mana Divination at instant speed, right? Oh, no, you got it. It's 4 mana Divination. So, at instant speed, though. So 4 mana, it's just Weed Fade. Okay, so, that card's really flexible. I am not sure which of these is the best, to be honest. I could see Quench and Censor being potentially better than Thassa's Intervention. I could see Thassa's Intervention being better overall as well. So this is kind of challenging. I'm just going to go with Thassa's Intervention because it gives me more value. But maybe that's just wrong. Maybe I'm supposed to take Broken Ambitions here. Because for 3 mana, I'm going to go with Thassa's Intervention. I think it's got high enough upside to err on the side of, trying it. I think Preordain is just an obvious pick here. Remand is very good. Chain Lightning is very good. Bitter Blossom is broken. So we'll go with Bitter Blossom, I think. Bitter Blossom is broken, but it's very, very, very strong. Now, I'm hearing talk in the chat of 13-line special, which communicates to me there's probably some aggro being drafted. And I don't think it's black. It could be black aggro. I maybe haven't been paying good enough attention about what's been wheeling in terms of understanding what other people are on. I know that people aren't on mono white, so it's not that. I've been able to wheel burn spells, so it's probably not mono red, so I think it's mono black. So I definitely want to take this Bitter Blossom and try to wheel. I probably won't get Chain Lightning, but maybe I can get War Boss. And if not, I probably can snag it. So that's okay. Rekindling Phoenix is one of those cards that's really great in this kind of list. I think that it could potentially just be better than Sarkon. Arc Lightning is very powerful. Let's see. I have a lot of 3s in this deck. Our curve basically starts at 4, which isn't ideal. I could see a world where we want On-Crop Crasher. It's good in the mid-range matchup. We could also just take Arc Lightning. It's a really good removal spell. We do know someone's on aggro because of that whole snippet of 13-mana special. So I could take the Arc Lightning. I could take Rune Snag. But we're pretty okay, I think, on counter magic at this point. I mean, not great, but it's not like we wouldn't take more. But I think it's like crucial. I'll go with Rekindling Phoenix. We're pretty threat high, but it's really, really good against control, I think. Alright, and here we've got the choice of Hypnotic Sprite versus Blood Crypt. I think I want the Hypnotic Sprite. I think Blood Crypt will probably wheel at this point. Alright, and this is back to our pack 1, where I will take Quench. Alright, go take Illumination. Alright, Legion Warboss wheeled. Notably, Herald of Torment is also very good. I'm going to take Legion Warboss, I think. Better against control, worse against aggro, worse against mid-range. Maybe it's correct to take the Herald of Torment. It's better in more matchups. Nah, I'll take the Random Master. I think that's just right. This is what our deck looks like right now. 42 minus 9 is 33, so we're way too high. We need to cut a lot of cards, but I'm not ready to do that yet, so I'll take the On-Crop Crasher here with that pack wheeling. We could just cut like all of the black cards if we wanted to. I don't think that's right, though. I mean, we have some really strong black stuff. Maybe black is more like a splash color. Mana Leak wheeled. Alright, that's lit. Or notably, the Blood Crypt didn't wheel, so maybe someone's on red black. Or they're just trying to cut us out of colors. I think I hate this one more. Alright, Biogen last bag. Yeah, so no one's in green. So because no one's in green, I think that what we can assume is that we can actually cut some of the hard removal from our main board. So like ultimate price is probably not necessary because we're not going to be facing that many big creatures that can't just be killed. I think theoretically is my reasoning behind that. And like if we play against midrange, we'll just bring those in. I think the same can be true of Last Gasp and Fatal Push. And yeah, so traditionally I try to refrain from playing spells that require me proactive in my splash color. But these spells are all fairly good. I mean, Bitter Blossom, Piper the Swarm, Liliana are all just like really, really powerful threats. So I'm okay with the added. Okay, so what happens if we cut those three? Can we just run our deck as is? Probably. I mean, probably. Alright, so let's evaluate how good my mana is. I think that's like... God damn it. Everyone just likes to make so much noise. Anyway, so our mana base is very black heavy. We've got Badlands, Blackleaf Cliffs, Creeping Tar Pit, Marsh Flats, Polluted Delta, Water Ghost. We've got 6 sources right now of black, and that's at 9 lands. So I think, what's the... So population size 40, number of successes, let's say we run like 1 black basic, so 7. Our sample size is going to be 10, so that's the odds that we draw, or let's do 8. So this is, what I'm calculating right now is the your average percent of the time that you can draw a black source by turn 2 to play your Bitter Blossom on 2 with 7 sources of black mana in your cube, so, or in your deck. Number of successes in the sample, 1. Alright, so your probability is 82%. That's pretty high. The success rate for you having 2 seen by turn 3 is much lower, so maybe we should cut Liliana from our main board. Alright, so we can cut Liliana from the main. What else can we potentially cut? Jace Architect is kind of slow. Let's look at our type really quick. So we've got 11 creatures. God, it's almost like we shouldn't be running black at this point. Man, that's kind of sad. We have such good fixing for it. But, you know, if we cut those 2 things, we're probably more likely to succeed. Yeah, I think that's correct. That sucks. Okay. So now we know that we picked the wrong land with Polluted Delta. So we'll keep in the Badlands because it doesn't impact anything, except it just makes our fixing better. So, yeah. Okay, so now we have 34 minus 7, so we need like 1 cut. I think the weakest card in this list. How many pieces of removal do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's it. 5 pieces of removal. And we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces of counter magic. Oh, we've got Avacyn's Judgment, so that's a 6th removal spell. Okay, so we've got how many cantrips do we have? 1, 2, 3. There it is. 3. Good mysteries. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so we're at 7. I think we can probably cut one of those, and I think it's probably Hieroglyphic Illumination. It's probably the weakest one. Or Sea Beyond. Maybe Sea Beyond is weaker. I could see Sea Beyond being a little bit weaker. Probably not, though. I'm going to go with cut Hieroglyphic. Oh, and Creepy Tar Pit maybe shouldn't stay in. What's the thought process on that? If we add Watery Grave in, do we have enough sources to activate our creepy tar pit? Is it worth the tap land? Essentially, is the question. Is it worth, like, I gain a threat, but I lose. It's basically a 1 mana threat. So this is like my actual Delver of Secrets, right, in my deck. It's kind of challenging. It's a challenging decision process. I think it's probably correct just to be as sleek as possible. That's my guess. And maybe we should be on or Watery Grave because you can fetch it with Marsh Flats. So that makes our fixing as good as it can be. All right, 33 minus 7 gives us 26. That's 14 lands. All right, so let's add the lands now. This seems about right. 4-3, yeah, pretty even split. Or maybe even like 5-2. We really wanted to go heavy on blue just to ensure that we can cast all our spells, but I think that our mana is pretty good. So, yeah. All right, let's do it. Okay, so it was decided by the group that we will have the bye round 1 because it is my cube. And so we're just going to spectate one of the round 1 games. So here we have user Metallics on what looks like some form of mono black aggro versus Telomerase, who is on mono green midrange. Now Metallics' hand is kind of weak here. It's 4 swamps, but he does have a 1-drop. It looks like Telomerase mulliganed their first hand and are down to 6 cards, but their hand looks pretty good as well. Telomerase should be favored in this matchup, but it is possible that Metallics can get there with evasive threats. So he leads with Gingerbread, gets 1 damage in early. Alright, and Telomerase draws Nissa. Now their turn 1 play doesn't really matter. Arbor Elf, Find Horn Elves, doesn't really matter. Okay, so they play Find Horn Elves. Yeah, they're trying to get to that Garrick, I think. But I think there's a world in which next turn they want to play Nissa. Nissa VOZ would be really great at kind of gumming up the board. I kind of like that line of play in that like you just don't care about losing the 1/1. Alternatively, they can play 2 dorks and try to race to Garrick. This one of the dorks they could just sack then too, depending on how much mana they have. Like if they draw a land here, they could sack one. Alright, so Metallic chooses to play Porcelain Legionnaire over the Spinethopter. I think that kind of makes sense. He doesn't know that Telomerase may be playing things to gum up the board and just chump the Porcelain Legionnaire. And it is at its maximum value here, right? Porcelain Legionnaire is at its best when there's less things to come up the board, so it's going to potentially get in some chip damage that it wouldn't get in later because he's playing against midrange. Alright, and so it looks like Telomerase went for the race to Garrick line, and they drew a land, so they should be able to just chump this Porcelain Legionnaire with Arbor Elf, and then cast Garrick. Alright, Metallics draws for turn. Looks like he's just going to swing with both. Is he making Gingerbread unblockable? No. Alright. Second main, he plays Herald on it. Alright, that makes sense. I like Herald here. The other line was play Ghoul Draws, Assassin, and Spinethopter, which is fine, but I think that probably getting the Herald into play is better. Telomerase draws another land. That's not ideal. Notably, last turn they could have blocked. They could have just double blocked. No, that doesn't work. I would have just blocked the Porcelain Legionnaire if I were in their position. Save 3 points of damage because I already know that I have 5 mana for my Garrick, and nothing else in my deck is going to cost more than 5 mana. So I think that's the line I would have taken. Two, 3. Yep.
Garrick probably make a 3/3. I don't think they're just gonna draw a card um, and pass. Now, what's kind of important is that Herald of Torment can race that Garrick and beat it down pretty quickly. But by that point, Garrick will have made at least 2 tokens, and 2/3/3s is a pretty big deal. Although the Porcelain Legionnaire having first strike is also a big deal here, so maybe Metallics was correct in playing the Porcelain Legionnaire. I think they actually were. Okay, and so Metallics drew a 2/1 flyer for 2 here, Wasp of the Bitter End. They can choose to attack with okay, so yeah, they chose that option. You can choose to attack with Ginger Brute and make it unblockable here, and I like that option. If that actually seems weird, I think that if I were Telmarace, I would have double blocked the Porcelain Legionnaire, and still let my Garrick die, but I would have killed the Legionnaire, maybe. It depends on how afraid of the damage I am. I think that that's a line that could have been considered. But I mean, if you feel like you can turn it around by using the 3/3, maybe that's incorrect. Alright, so there's a Thrashing Brontodon and a Nissa in Telmarace's hand. I think they have enough to cast both. Yeah, they do. So it's just a matter of, do they think that Metallics will play removal before they can sack the Brontodon to kill something? Because the Brontodon can actually kill the Herald of Torment. It can kill a lot of this board. It can kill Herald of Torment, Porcelain Legionnaire, or Ginger Brute. And it also just takes Porcelain Legionnaire offline, because the Legionnaire just can't attack through it. So now there's something with 4 toughness on the board, and that does put Metallics in a bit of a pickle. He does have 5/6 unblockable damage here. Oh, and Telmarace just immediately down takes. That makes sense, because the Nis is going to die anyway, so like making a 0/1 just doesn't do a lot. I like Antheming here. Okay, moving to combat. Swings for 5 in the air. Doesn't choose to attack with Ginger Brute. I think there's a world in which attacking with the Ginger Brute is right. Just put your opponent to 5, which means that they're dead to basically any of your attacks here. But I guess let's see, you're at 14, your opponent has 4, 8, 10, 12, 14, so you do need a block. And obviously, Telmarace just drew Nissa, which increases that to 17, so you need to block at least 2 things now. Alright, Nissa comes down. She's going to untap a land. And well, no, I guess Metallics only has to block 1 thing. Or it doesn't even have to block now, right? Because there's only 7. Yeah, there's only 7, 11, plus 4, 15. So yeah, he's got to block 1 thing. So yeah, I think that it was probably correct to attack with the Ginger Brute on the previous turn. Because then you put your opponent dead to the 2/2/1s and your Ginger Brute, yeah. Whereas this way, if your opponent kills your Herald of Torment, now you can't necessarily get through with everything. Yeah, so swings with 8. This makes sense because obviously Metallics can block and stay alive, so Telomerase can attack and not feel the threat of losing the game. Because they can also, because of the way Metallics played, they should be attacking with the 3-3-2. I'm not sure though, because the arrow's a little unclear. They're not using all of the signals. But yeah, so Telomerase can kill Herald of Torment here, and that would save them, and they'd be able to win the game. Because they just Anthem Nissa, and they make a new 3-3 with Big Nissa, and they Anthem with the other Nissa, and just like swing with everything. Yeah, I think the Metallics made a mistake by not attacking with Ginger Brute, or Ginger Brute, on the last turn. I think that was the play that would have ensured a victory here. And on the flip side, I think that Telomerase has conceded verbally, by the way, in chat. But I think that they made a mistake in not recognizing they could kill the Herald of Torment. So Metallics should have lost this game if Telomerase had played the last turn correctly, but Metallics should have won the game if he had played his previous turn correctly. So, alright, well, Metallics wins the first game, so we'll head into the second game. Okay, so it's like 3 lands, Bloodforged Battle Axe, Dark Confidant, and 2/2/1 fly guys. One has Shadow, but that's just a flyer, right? Versus 2 Dorks and Deadridge Goliath. So, without knowing for sure, my guess is that Telomerase constructed their deck in a way that they are likely on too many lands. I can't say that with certainty because I don't know their list, but they are new to drafting my cube, where the curve is much leaner. And because of that, you can often run less than 17 lands. Often 14 to 15 lands is correct, especially if you have a lot of dorks. Just like with cantrips, you can cut a land for every like 2 dorks that you have, more or less, or like 3 dorks. It's like 3 dorks. A land for every 3 dorks. It's about right. So, flip side, Metallics draws a land. That's not ideal for them. I think this hand actually makes a lot of sense for a keep from Metallics. The reason being, against mid-range, you do really need those evasive guys to come down. They make a big, big difference in terms of your ability to close out the game quickly. And you don't really care about your 1-drops, because you're not, like, especially on the draw, you're not getting that much chip damage in with your 1-drop, if any. Like on the draw versus mid-range, just play a 3-drop and you just cry. So if I were Metallics here, I would probably play, it seems unintuitive to not play the Bob, but I probably would have played one of the 2-1s. Because I know that my opponent is, well, maybe I take that back given that he drew the Murderous Rider. I wasn't paying attention to that, but I suppose that you know that your opponent is going to play, if they play like a creature or something, then your Murderous Rider helps you. If they don't play a creature, if they play like a if they play a Planeswalker and you Murderous Rider their creature and try to attack, then you're in a sadder state. Oh, interesting. Telmaris is attacking with the Elves of Deep Shadow. That's fascinating. Personally, I would have left it up because that way, I mean, I guess. So I guess what Telmaris is thinking is they feel pretty safe behind the Deadbridge Goliath. They don't know that Metallics has the Murderous Rider to kill the Deadbridge, so in their brain they think they can just stonewall the Dark Confidant with Goliath, and that should be enough. But they don't know that the Murderous Rider will kill it, and then this allows Metallics to get in with the Dark Confidant. Not that it's a lot of damage, so it may be negligible to the point where they just don't care. Like 2 damage just isn't that much, so I guess that's probably reasonable. Unfortunately for Telrace, they are at 6 lands drawn. So yeah, I think that probably confirms my suspicion. It's not guaranteed. It's very possible that you draw 6 lands without. There is variance. You can draw 6 lands and beyond 15 lands, and you just are unlucky, and that happens. My guess is that that they're probably on more than 15, 16 lands. I'm guessing probably 17. That's pretty standard. That's what people usually do. Talix gets in for 2. And what's important here is that Telmaris doesn't really have any way of closing this game out. They have to tap out in order to scavenge the Deadbridge Goliath, which means that Metallics gets to get in again with his Dark Confidant and potentially also, like equip. He could double play a Shadow Guy and the 2/1 Flyer, and another land for Telmaris. That's not good. That's not what you want to see. Unfortunately, this game is much more lopsided than Game 1. Game 1 was really close. There were a lot of decisions to be made. The final 2 turns decided the game. So I think that that was nice. But this is pretty rough. And this is where maybe Metallics is right in playing the Bob first, is that maybe this gives him more of an out to find removal, right? It gives him 2 extra looks at removal spells. Yeah, I think I was probably wrong in saying that I would play 2/1. I mean, it just guarantees him getting damage, so that's kind of the reason that I was considering playing the Mistral Chargers first. Okay. Bob Trigger reveals a land. That's ideal. And now Metallics gets to go. I'd probably go with play a flyer and equip the Bloodforged Battle Axe. So yeah, that makes sense. So this is going to clone the Battle Axe, which means that when he plays his flyer, he's got 2 things to equip to it, and that should close out this race pretty quickly. And I think that's pretty much his game plan. Ideally, I guess you'd play the Horror here, because it's the most unblockable. It's the unblockabliest unblockable because it has Shadow. Another land. Wow, that's so rough. Yeah, you start to kind of feel bad here. Yeah, now Metallics just equips the... That's kind of shocking. I think if I were in the position of Telmaris, I would have attacked with both, because that's 7. So you swing for 7, and then your opponent has to play a blocker. They have to either block or play a blocker. I would have swung for 7 there. Because, yeah, you're dead in 2 turns anyway. You're not decreasing your clock. Oh, okay. That they are doing that. Okay. It's just a misunderstanding with the the phases being highlighted. Yeah, Metallics just blocks the 6/6, which that makes sense. Because they could die to the, yeah, and now there's a cast down. So that really sucks. That's kind of the nail in the coffin, is just finding a Doomblade. Um, yeah, Metallics can just equip the Bloodforged Battle Axe to Bob now instead, because they swung with 2 creatures, and swing for 6, and then also just kill the big creature. Or any blocker that he plays too. So Metallics is playing the Murderous Strider, which also makes sense because he's not really worried about the 6/6 killing him here, and he can just cast down next turn. Oh, he chooses not to equip. It's interesting. I would have equipped. Maybe he's looking to. So he's just holding up cast down. Okay. That's fine. I mean, none of these plays are bad. They're not necessarily how I would have played it out. I think I would have probably played the horror here. Just another land. That's so bad. 9 lands in the top 12 cards. That's just unfortunate. Telemrace just got really unlucky here. Even if they're on 17 lands, like the probability of you seeing 9 lands in your opening 12 is so slim. Yeah, and Metallics just has the cast down for the elves. But yeah, I would have just played the horror here, because even if he um, yeah, because even if there's something that he needs to cast down this turn, he can always just do it next turn. He's not in any immediate pressure, or like under any immediate pressure. Like if there's a Nissa, he takes 3 blocks and he gains 2. So he basically just takes 1. He untaps and just kills his opponent, right? So yeah, I would have played the Dothry Horror. I think that's correct in most scenarios. But at the same time, I mean, Metallics feels really safe in that he's got our Murderous Rider that he's just going to triple equip Bloodforged Battle Axe to and just win the game with. So, I mean, I get why he chose to play that way, but I would just run out the 2/1. As goofy as this is, I mean, he's swinging for 8. Alright, 8 with the Murderous Rider. Yeah. And now it's impossible for his opponent to win, right? You gain 8 life, and you have board state, and your opponent's drawn 9 lands. God, 9 lands, that's so rough. It's just so, it's gotta be so frustrating. Hey, dork guy. And then Metallics just like floods the board here, I think. You just run out like everything in your hand. Because you can, like why not? He just runs out Liliana Spectre, the Flyer, and Stronghold Confessor, and just has, 3 evasive guys. Yeah. And you can just swing with the bob, too. I would have swung with the bob here. Like, why not? Not like my opponent can afford to take, 8 damage. So they would just take the 2 from the bob, I think. Yeah, and Telemaris concedes. I think that's probably pretty reasonable. I don't think there's a world in which they're winning that game, so, yeah. Okay, so here comes the part of the video where I speak into the aether about my nonsensical thoughts about uh, those matches. So the first thing I want to do is just apologize. I think that I was not as vigilant as usual about hovering over card images because I can see them on my screen, but I realize that that may not be the case for the audience members. Um, Having taken a while off of recording, and this being my first time commentating a game rather than playing it myself, I think those factors really led into probably what's a less than optimal viewing experience. So I apologize for that. But that said, I think that it's really important for me to dive into kind of the things that I saw that occurred in these games. So the first thing is there's been a design change, and I have included some Mistral Chargers in my cube. So these are just like 2/1 flyers in black and white. And, the first one that I ever included was Spined Thopter because it's basically a 2-mana threat that goes in any deck, or any aggro deck mostly. It can kind of chip away your opponent's health. And then I tried Tomic and Core Skyfisher, and I kept at least Tomic in for a while. But recently Search Functional App decided that having 2/1 flyers is a really great way to decrease the polarity of your aggro versus mid-range matchup. Because mid-range is supposed to be very favored against aggro, and it tends to be, but whenever that margin of win percent goes too far in mid-range's favor, you want things to kind of bring that back in and make the matchup closer. So after you pointed that out, I think that that's a really great way to do that, and I've been testing it. It was really nice to see how impactful that is into the game. I think another card that I want to point out is Bloodforged Battle Axe. This card was just spectacular in Game 2. It pretty much just won the game on its own. I mean, granted, there was also the fact that Telemaris didn't draw anything for 100 turns, but yeah, the ability to kind of pair it with evasive threats and create several equipments to just basically go really tall on your opponent is certainly ideal for aggro. And the last thought is just kind of in terms of gameplay. I have not commentated many games before, but it was interesting to see how more reserved Metallics was than I would be in terms of playing an aggro deck. I think that the lines that I would have taken were successful given the events that unfolded, but maybe there's some outcomes where Metallics' lines, being safer, holding up the cast down, or not attacking with the Ginger Brute, were maybe those were outs to things that I wasn't seeing. So I'd love to hear your comments, and yeah, thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you next time.